meeting to order. Would you please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance. Mr. John Willoughby, thank you for being here this morning.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's pray. Father, our requests are simple. We ask for wisdom. We ask for discernment. We ask for unity and love. We ask that the fruits of your spirit of love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, kindness, and self-control would flow through this room right now as we come together as a community to make decisions that will impact us all. We offer up our work, we offer up our lives under your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Next item of business is the ceremonial matters and the proclamations and employee recognition. Do you have employee recognition this morning?
I have one.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, are y'all? Chris. I have my ceremonial blue shirt on.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Chris. So this email comes from Pastor Bobby Vitek to Mayor Hoover. Pastor Bobby writes, Gerald, I'm not sure about the proper protocol for lifting up a citizen at the city council meeting, which is periodically done. So please excuse me if this is not the way and redirect. But on Saturday, August 20th, Chris Ayala again went above and beyond call of duty to lead a 7-hour safety and security workshop on Saturday. 7 hours. It was attended by 55 persons representing 9 churches from our community. The teaching involved in this class conversations and guidelines, as well as preparedness drills. This is not a new thing for Chris Ayala to volunteer himself and do as he has led on countless events for churches, private schools, preschools, groups, and public school in his day. In light of the climate that we continue to find ourselves in these days with respect to public shootings, his experiences and skills in leading such awareness programs is vital to this community. So offered up for Officer Chris Ayala for his continued investment in Fredericksburg and Gillespie County is our hats off and full salute to you. Thank you, Chris Ayala.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Next place photo. You got it. Gotta go on the wall. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chris.
We have a special proclamation. Is that for today?
Yes, sir.
It is, okay. Do we have someone here from the native plant? Good. Y'all come on up. Texas Native Plant Week has been celebrated through the state since 2009 to emphasize the use of native plants to help alleviate ongoing drought conditions and maintain our butterflies and other pollinators that are so important to our agricultural economy, ecosystem, and whereas the Native Plant Society of Texas is a leader in our state and actively promotes the conservation, research, and use of native plants and plant habitats in our region through education, outreach by example, and is leading a BioBlitz challenge for everyone to document the wild plants anywhere within the state during the period of October 16 through 22. And whereas this year, the International Union for Conservation of Nature classified migratory monarch butterflies as endangered, and our Texas Hill Country plays an important role as a nursery in the spring and way station in the fall for these butterflies on their 2,500-mile migration from Mexico to Canada. And whereas the Texas native wildflowers, trees, grasses, and shrubs play an important role in supporting butterflies, birds, bats, and other wildlife, as well as help reduce the use of water in home and business landscapes. And Whereas the Fredericksburg chapter of the Native Plant Society of Texas is a membership organization that supports stewardship, education, and initiatives throughout the year to increase the use of Texas native plants and reduce the use of non-native and invasive species by hosting speakers at its monthly public meetings, submitting information to the Fredericksburg Standard Radio Post, maintaining the native plant gardens at the Fredericksburg Post Office, working on the pollinator garden and nature trail at Cross Mountain, and holding a twice yearly members only native plant sale and many other events. And now therefore, I, Gerald Hoover, Mayor of the City of Fredericksburg, Texas, and the state of Texas, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim the week of October 16 through 22, 2022 as Texas Native Plant Week in the city of Fredericksburg, and encourage our community to volunteer, learn about plant, and help preserve Texas native plants for the future preservation of monarch butterfly migration to Texas, as well as local native pollinators, birds, other wildlife supported by our gardens, and wild spaces which are important to our local economy and well-being. In witness thereof today, 4th of October, 2022. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you for your work on our behalf. We hope to do better with all of our native plant species and get rid of this cane and the fruit. You bet.
Right. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you for the countdown so I can suck it in. All right. Next item on the agenda, and thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen, for our new protocol and format for city council meetings for this council meeting on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. and altering our format some. So we're moving council comments to the upper part of the meeting so that we can hopefully begin with more of the great things that are going on and also expressing some of the concerns. Council, anybody? Anybody met with anybody that with our organizations that you're assigned to, Chamber, CBB, Native Plants, or is that still upcoming?
The Friends of the Fredericksburg Nature Center went to the Cibolo Conservation Center in Bernie last week to get a tour, and I wasn't able to go, but I went the week before and met with their development director, and it's a beautiful facility and it's very inspiring to see. I'm excited about that. I've been attending the county commissioners court meetings every other week, and that's plugging right along. And I'm excited about this new format and just wanted to remind us all that it's not just about the YouTube, watching on YouTube or being here, but we also have our emails and phone numbers online, and you can reach us on social media. We can meet over coffee. We've got town halls to talk about soon, so lots of good ahead.
Are we going to mention the town halls today, or is that for a future?
I'll go over that in my
Okay.
update.
Because that's part of this.
Yes,
It's a
sir.
new format and
Absolutely.
outreach.
Right.
Anyone else?
Yes, this Convention and Visitor Bureau has hired Brady. It starts with a C, and I just went
Lawson?
Clausen, thank you. And they're planning a reception for him either the October 18th or 19th at the CBB in the lobby, just from 5:30 to 6:30. So it would be really good if we'd be there to welcome him. He moving here from Grapevine.
Say the date again.
It's either the 18th or 19th.
Either the 18th or the 9th.
So look
Okay.
for announcements.
Welcoming our new CBB director.
Correct.
Great. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to go to action items and updates. Let's take 6A, the consider of the council minutes for the September 14th special meeting and the September 19th regular meeting as a consent agenda, well as an item. I am assuming that all of you had time to read and submit any alterations to Shelley, because I got a renewed or corrected one. Any further correction? All right, I'll take a motion on 6A.
I move that we approve the minutes from the September 14th meeting and the September 19th meeting with corrections.
Second. Motion second to approve these minutes as presented with corrections. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6A passes unanimously. All right, I'm going to move item 6E. up to 6 feet. Because I know that we have several people commenting on that, and also I know that may be why many of you have attended today. It's a very important item that we consider, discuss, and take action regarding a 6-month review of the short-term rental permitting statistics information to the Granicus software, enforcement matters, and potential next steps. Garrett, do you want to lead us off with this?
I'd be happy to.
Go right ahead.
So ordinance number 2022-13, which included numerous changes to the SDR regulations, went into effect on April 1st. At that time, the Granicus short-term rental compliance monitoring software also went into effect, albeit on a trial type version. Since that time, staff has been very busy trying to implement the new ordinance revisions and continuing to work with Granicus to implement the full version of that software. Changes have also been made to the enforcement process, specifically in regards to the quiet hour. And we hope to have the new civil administrative hearing process underway within the next couple of weeks. We'll have some additional updates at the next council meeting. So although additional changes may be needed, the new ordinance does appear to be having some positive effects on the issues relating to SDR. But as the mayor mentioned, we felt it'd be worthwhile to have further discussion, specifically or particularly since it's 6 months since the official implementation. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor. I know he's got a presentation to give, and then we can talk about any questions.
Okay, I do have several people who've signed up to speak on this, so let's do that. Mike Mahoney,
I'll pass.
You don't want to do your presentation first?
sorry.
You aren't going to do your presentation.
Oh, you want me to do my thing first?
Yes,
Okay. All right,
I do.
by popular demand. All right, so folks, I want you to be clear. This is a presentation that I created as a recommendation for the council to consider. I apprised them of this a couple of months ago and then a month ago, that these were the things that I was looking at this and I would be presenting them with recommendations. So this is my presentation. I created it with after doing some research and finding some evidence. And these are things that I'm asking the council to consider as we go forward. Some of us said during the campaign that we would like to give the ordinance 6 months to see how it functioned. And we are short some hard data from Granicus, unfortunately. That's been a consistent trial and tribulation, and we're hoping to get that up in full implementation for us. It's not at all what we thought would happen in the 6 months, but here we are. So all we can do is continue to trek along, but I did not want to let the 6-month mark pass without us taking a hard look at that. And here we are in October. So this PowerPoint presentation is my way of requesting to the council to consider action right away on what we all know is an obstacle, and that is housing for people who want to live and work here. And specific to today's discussion is the impact on housing brought about by the recent rush of STRs in our neighborhoods. And by the way, I've heard anecdotally that through conversation, minus any data from one person who's in the business and knows that there was a decline in the overall non-hotel lodging numbers last weekend for Oktoberfest relative to last year and years previous, which suggests we may be seeing the first signs of an oversupply of STRs outweighing the demand. But whether we have 1,300 STRs or a balanced number compared to our housing stock available for homeowners or renters, the recommendations I'm opening up with today still apply. We are not in control of our STR industry, and we must secure it. STRs are not the core of our housing problem, but the imbalance does exacerbate it. Now, it's one of my things I don't like is for people to make a PowerPoint presentation and read it to you. So I will allow you to read, but I'll make the point that I did some research on these, on how Airbnb particularly, which I've read recently. Airbnb is $40 million business in Fredericksburg and Gillespie County. I'll say it again, 40 million annual, according to them. in Fredericksburg. And this is a quote that they say, obviously making a point that houses that go off them don't become residences, become something else. Cottage hotels, next slide. Properties in the areas that the Airbnb listings increased rents 1 to 3%. Now that may seem like a tiny bit, but wait. Next. A 10% increase in these listings leads to a 4% increase and a 0.76 in house prices. Look at that next sentence. The effect of Airbnb is smaller in areas with a larger share of owner occupiers. Love it. Is home sharing driving up rents evidence in Airbnb in Boston? The STR industry grew 800% from 11 to 16. So if you take 10% per year, 0.42 and 800% times 4.2 is a 33, almost 37% increase in rents relative to STRs in rental properties, what would become rental properties. And this was a time when household income increased only 18%. So if your rent goes up 37%, your household income goes up 18%, you can see kind of why we're in some of the situation we're in. What about Boston? I realize these are big cities, but I just want, you're smart enough to pick out what applies to us. These problems can be mitigated by adopting best practice regulations for STRs, and that's what we hope to do. Next. Now, what is happening in Fredericksburg? These numbers are reasonable estimates for what's going on here. We all know that STRs are everywhere in our residential areas. Here are some numbers that quantify it. These numbers are somewhat fluid because STR permits that expire or don't renew, or there's a lag between expiring and renewal, or the property changes hands and we don't see any activity. So we have a spreadsheet that has sort of catch-all information from the previous avenue and to Granicus for what we have in house and so forth. So some of these numbers are STRs that are not perhaps active right now, but they've been in the system. So the point is, since we have no transferability prohibition, they can fire up as an STR again. So we have roughly R1 3785, and we don't have, I understand we don't have in like an R2, we don't have 334 active STRs at the moment, but we do have on the books R2 STR at some point were permitted. So they are potential STRs. Next. This is from our affordable housing study, which we paid for. I am going to read this one because it's important. The older, smaller, and legacy housing stock, which typically fulfills the housing market's need for affordable homes for the first-time buyers, is instead being rebranded as a business opportunity and priced relative to its ability to generate income. Next. 11% of the county's households can afford the average priced home, and a staggering 89% are priced out of the market. I repeat, this is from our affordable housing study just done by the housing coordinator that we hired with the county, with HEB, with HCMA, FISD, and others. We're considered extremely high, 87% higher than all other markets nationally, and 92% higher than all of the Texas markets. That's rent. We have a lot of people commuting more than 25 minutes. The study suggests that pent-up local housing demand because of that is close to 1,900 units. Meanwhile, we have 700 job openings currently being advertised and 10 rental properties below $1,500 per month. How accurate, Tim, is that 700 job openings right now? Has that changed?
Pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And this was done in March. This is my statement. Next. Next. Here's what we can do. We can take control of this presence for the purpose of serving the bigger objective of addressing our residential housing challenges. Folks, let me say, STRs are good for Fredericksburg in the right numbers, in the right places, and behaving in the right ways. My opinion. The traditional B and B, particularly in R2, and the historical little properties around Main Street and so forth, were very good for this town for years. Those are the days when somebody lived there and hosted them in their house and served breakfast and served as the concierge and all that sort of thing. It's a very, very different day, and these are new circumstances that we didn't ask for, but we have to deal with. So right number in the right place, behaving in the right ways as per regulation, they're good for Fredericksburg. Next, we can begin the process for amending the ordinance passed in March. We can impose a moratorium on new applications for R201 and R2 permits while we do so. Now, there's a recent court case in New Orleans I've read about that muddied the waters regarding our own permit, our own ordinance. And so we need to take another look at how that case applies to the ordinance that we have on the books, and does it prevent us or help us to do what we thought we wanted to do with our SDR ordinance with R1, and also R2 as a new consideration. We can expand the restrictions R2, prohibit the transferability of permits as long as you operate it as your property, that's fine, but you can't sell it as an SDR. Set a time limit. So anybody operating an R2, as long as you're operating it, you continue to operate it. That doesn't matter. And that's not our thing, as long as you abide by the rules and regulations. But you can't sell it as an SDR. That's a consideration. That's the transferability option. Prohibition. Time for limit of acting on a permit application. You know, we had people who rushed to the table between March, whenever it was passed, to April 1st. And then no doubt when this gets out that we're talking about this, there may be others. There ought to be a time for acting on that permit application rather than just holding it for months and months and months, hoping to sell it as an STR. Remember, all this is to the objective of making one little tiny step in the housing issue. Increase the magnitude of penalties for repeat violators. This was recommended, number 4 was recommended by the judge in that case, and that I just mentioned that was handled in New Orleans. He told the city, there's some things you can't do, some of the things you said you want to do, but you could do these things to accomplish the same objective. And one of them was to make harsher penalties on the violators. Specify the terms for permit suspension or revocation. Then aggressively enforce the local contacts requirements. And this is where Granicus will help us, for being on site or able to respond in 30 minutes, which is in the ordinance. But aggressively enforce that. We're not right now, and for good reasons. We don't have the capacity that we need, and obviously these things tend to happen during dark hours when people are working, except for these. There's some issues about the advertising requirements. They need to be specific. When you're advertising online, you need to tell the people who are looking at your property what the house rules are, the capacity and the parking limits. So they need to know before they get here. Another judge recommended fix was to cap the share of housing units that can be used as our SDRs. Next. And then Garrett mentioned this, setting up an administrative adjudication process for water and trash noise and outdoor lighting violations. That we were not clogging up the muni court with these things that are just citations. They can come in, they can plead guilty, pay their fine, or if they want to appeal, they can go through that process. But this disposes of these things quicker. It also gives us the option to set the fines in a tiered system. This costs you $75 if you don't show up or deal with it. It's $150 next time, whatever. The objective is to get violators to stop violating. And then the possibility of shifting enforcement of SDR compliance to the police department. Council member Kirchner mentioned this to me, and we discussed it a little bit. That's something to consider. We have to have police conversations. We need to know from the chief that this is something that they could take on. But the whole point is that they're out patrolling during the dark hours. And this is my final comment about objectives on the housing. Go ahead. Our immediate objective is to consider a resolution declaring it a public facility. This is a recommendation from Vince. Strategize the trickle back of SDR properties for home ownership and rentals. and meet with the county to set joint objectives. And we need to get serious about the affordable housing study. Let's redeem it. Either let's read it and say, we got some good ideas here, let's do it. Or we can't do that, but we can do this, but let's get on with his recommendations to see the pros and cons, of which ones might work best for Fredericksburg. Near term. Next slide. Let's develop a hard-edged strategic plan to move these objectives forward. An objective plan, a strategic plan obviously has the action, the objectives, the action steps, the timing, and who's accountable. Incorporate these objectives into the new comp plan, which we're going to hear more about today. And everything we deal with from now forward in terms of development, we keep these housing initiatives, what we've decided we're going to do and collaborate with, and the city council part of it. And finally, stay alert and nimble to employ, because we don't know what new circumstances are going to be. Maybe the economy changes things. It could be that many STR owners get out of the business because there's not enough for them in these days. But staying alert and nimble is a good thing for the council to do anyway, especially about housing. And then finally, here's what we want. Ultimately, number 3. All right, so council, you ready to hear from?
I just have one question. Joe.
Okay.
You had mentioned not rampifying the R2s. How about the R1s?
Right.
So you had a sense
I couldn't hear the question.
what your,
I'll repeat.
go ahead.
He said, you're grandfathering. The issue of grandfathering R1. In other words, you don't, the transferability issue is to remove that transferability option for R1 and R2 because it fights against our objectives for housing. Other questions, council, of my presentation before we hear Mike? Mahoney?
I'll add.
Okay. Leland?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing me to speak this morning. The SDR thing has really come into the forefront of my wife and I over the last year. Currently, we live on Glenmore. Well, we've lived there for 45 years now, so we're not really new to the area. Back last year, the house right next door to us went ahead and sold, and it was completely remodeled, privacy fence put up, and then a slab was poured right next to our property line, right next there. The chain link fence is no longer there. It's a privacy fence. Curiosity was about to kill me, but then one day that curiosity was answered. A hot tub was put right in that corner there. Now it's 6 feet from the property line, and then it's 6 feet to our property line, and our house sits there. And then that tub sits right inside that fence. So if you put the numbers together, that hot tub sits 15 feet from our master bedroom bed, okay? I get up in the mornings, and if that fence weren't there, I could look right down to that lady's feet, and there's a hot tub. Okay, when that thing first came about last fall, that was party central. There were parties that were being held in the backyard until all hours, not only of the night, but in the morning. There was the cussing, the vulgar language, all kinds of vulgar language, screaming, hollering. You could hear the beer cans hitting the concrete back there and everything. One morning early, it was a Sunday morning, I heard a commotion out in the front yard, and there was a gentleman throwing up on the sidewalk in the front yard. So this is what we've had to deal with. What we've had to deal with. We called the owners and also the rental company, and they said that it would be taken care of. Well, yes, but next weekend is another weekend of the same thing that goes ahead and comes about. I finally raised enough heck with the owners and the rental company that's doing it, and the lights that they had put up in the backyard. Our backyard and bedroom looked like a football stadium at night. And so we've had to put window coverings on our windows to prohibit the light from coming in. And then also they took, they did take the lights down. They took down the Bluetooth speakers. I can recite verbatim many of the songs that the country and western and rock and roll singers are playing nowadays, but pictures were vibrating on our wall. Y'all may think that I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It was very, very loud. So that did come down and a sign was put up then indicating that the quiet hours were from 9 p.m. up until 7 a.m. in the morning. Well, that did cut out a lot of the ruckus partying and everything, but most of these tenants, being young women, their voices carry very easily and everything, and you hear the cackling in the tub until all hours of the morning, and you know, the laughing and all that stuff like that. So that is what we've had to put up with, even though it has been squelched a little bit. Now, the thing that bothers me more than anything is the fact that our neighborhood has become party central. On any given time on Saturday mornings, you hear the ride. I mean, the big limousines drive up with the loud music, you know, the speakers are booming and everything like that. The little trolley bus that comes up and down Main Street comes up and down Glenmore, and they're honking their horn and they're ringing the bell and everything. And there's literally no privacy at all for us anymore. Now, I could go ahead and go on and on and on about this, but the thing that really hit me harder than anything was just this last week. We're privileged to have my daughter and her family live here in town, and the grandkids are always around there. And he enjoyed having little neighbor kids to go ahead and play with all the time. Well, he told me just the day before yesterday, we were outside piddling around and we're playing baseball, and he knocked his ball over into the neighbor's yard. So we had to go down the alley, go in the back gate, come in because there's no gates or anything there. Came back and he said, Opa, it's really sad. We don't have anybody to play with in our neighborhood anymore. And of course, you know, years ago, we had kids running up and down the main street on bicycles, playing ball and stuff like that, basketball and everything. And that has all disappeared. And so our neighborhood has basically died, except starting on Friday evenings about 6 o'clock until Sunday mornings about 10 o'clock. Now, I know that that a lot of this stuff, nothing can be done, but what Peggy and I are asking that you as a council take some action to enforce the laws that are in effect, you know, the noise, the trash, that's another thing. The trash bags are all sitting on the front porch until the clean lady comes. And, you know, just enforce that and enforce the noise a little bit more. And then if you can prohibit this, because there are a number of houses that are for sale on Glenmore that have the potential of being SDRs. And we have 4 of them already. And I just hope that we can keep some of these houses to have kids in the neighborhood again. But I know I've exceeded my 3 minutes. I thank y'all. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Keating.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor and Council and folks. Thanks for being at this meeting today. I'd like to speak about SDRs. You know, those who have been involved, you know, the council and the citizens on both sides of this opinion, spend many, many hours and diligent time on coming up with what I think is a great tool to be in your tool chest to work with SDR. And Gerald, I appreciate your presentation. It was very well done. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't agree with, but I won't get into that today. I will tell you that you have something in front of you in the toolbox that can work. Is it perfect? No. Is it completely wrong? No. My opinion is, and I said this during the campaign, it's like a baby. It's a newborn babe, and we need to let that babe learn how to walk. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my own personal life as my mother shared with me. I did not walk until I was 18 months old. Now, maybe that's why I am who I am. She went to the doctor, she was concerned, this child's not walking. The doctor said, give that child a chance to walk. And I did, I walked. And I think some of the things you all are talking about are certainly something that should be done. But I think Mr. Geiswhite really hit on it all. And I hear his pain. Sometimes I might be that neighbor, a resident living next to you doing the same thing. However, I would strongly suggest, as he said, enforcement. I think that was one of your points you made in your presentation. I think that's the way we need to be running right now. Let's let this thing work its way out. 6 months is, in my opinion, not enough to do anything erratic. You have things you mentioned in your thing that are already in the ordinance, enforcement, penalties, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into property rights, affordable housing. I will share with you, I am a realtor. You know, right now, your average home in Fredericksburg, Texas is over $500,000. I don't think the service industry people will ever get there. I don't even know if professional people such as law enforcement or nurses, et cetera, can get to that. So again, thank you for your time, but I would hope that again, let the ordinance, grow up and learn to walk before you do anything really drastic. Thank you.
Charlie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think is an appropriate amount of time to wait?
I would go at least a year,
Okay.
because you've already indicated gratis is. The things that should have been happening aren't happening.
Right.
Okay, so that's they're enforcement, there are things in that toolbox already in the SDO ordinance, if people are aware of what's in there and literally make good points, and your main point was enforcement. Now, turning it over to the city police officers, I'd rather have them chasing really bad people versus people who are partying too loud. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Moran?
Morning, Jeffrey, city resident. I'd like to also address the 6-month policy, coming up here, and also the lack of communication between the city and the STR owners. I put a permit in for my application, and when Gerald, I sent you a letter here a couple of months ago. I put an application in for my renewal of my STR permit in May, 10th of May, I believe, and I still haven't heard anything on it yet. So I was one of the strong advocates to change over to Granicus, because I hated, and like all the rest of the STR owners, we hated the Avenue company. There was no online recording. You couldn't apply for your applications online. But Granicus was supposed to have been so much better than them. They advertised being better than that. They have all these online applications and have everything, all this data at your fingertips. Well, don't have it. I mean, it's, so 4 months later, my application's in process. I don't know what's happened to it. Still haven't received anything from the city. And so I think you should give, I can't see if I don't have my permit as an STR owner. How is the city knowing, how is the city gonna find out anything if they don't even know what happens with, for 4 months, it's been on hold from somewhere or stuck. I've called and talked to people at the city and or sent emails and have heard nothing back that it's pending. And so I just really believe that you should hold off for another 6 months and find out, what kind of data we have. Because I don't, unless the data is out there, I get online, the city website, it doesn't show anything that I know of. And if there is something, please let me know about it. And that's all I could say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Shelby, can you speak to, that's all the people I have signed up to comment on that item. Shelby, can you speak to where you are, what you deal with the applications, the ones that are on the books, the non-renewals, the renewals, the pendings, the so forth? Talk about your world to us a little bit relative to what Jeffrey's talking about, trying to get a renewal and all things to do with applications that you deal with. Where are we on this?
Sure. So we're continuing to work with Granicus to fulfill our final transition to the final product. We had hoped that we would be there already, and we're not. So the system that we've been using since April is a temporary system. So all renewals, all new applications, they all go in the same way. And then on our end, staff is processing that information, putting it in a spreadsheet and identifying what's a renewal, so what's vested under the 2018 ordinance versus what's new and going to review for the 2022 ordinance. Up until a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we didn't have the ability to generate a permit or a renewal through the Granicus system. Hence the delay in submitting any information back out to applicants on our end, because the product that we had didn't enable us to do that. Really, all we've been able to do since April is collect data through Granicus. And then on our end, staff has been assimilating that data in our spreadsheet to ensure everything is accurate. So we all have accurate data. Unfortunately, it's only on staff's end through the spreadsheet, and that information is not accurately represented in the Granicus system at the moment. We have been working with Granicus to do that, and we've made some pretty significant progress the last couple of weeks, although it has been slow. So that's kind of where we're at. And we do receive several applications daily, a lot of communication back and forth between staff, Granicus, and staff and applicants. A big portion of my communication with people are sales. It's not even pending applications. It's people interested in purchasing a property that is either vested or they want to obtain a permit. A big bulk of my SDR communications is in sale, well, and less on the pending or the renewal. Staff has put some information out on our STR website that has been helpful. A lot of owners, management companies have gone to the website, pulled the information, including the STR fact sheet, the information directing them to Granicus. Staff has also drafted some instructions to walk through the temporary system that we have with Granicus, because as y'all well know, if you use it, it's one funnel. It collects everything, all new and renewals, and it gets kind of confusing. So we've kind of drafted some help. And if you're a new application, this is how you would submit. If you're renewal, this is how you submit. But of course, that will be changing again, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, when we get our final product up. But at the moment, we're still on this temporary version.
You said you get calls every day,
Every day. Every day.
people wanting to apply for a STR permit.
Yes, sir.
Well, there you go.
Jeff, did you get callbacks?
No,
Well, why aren't we calling people back and
Do
explaining?
you have any response to Mr. Moore about his issue about
So I had
your
some-
routine of calling people back and following up?
Sure. So we do return phone calls. We do return voicemails. We also send confirmation emails back. I know when you email, I send a response email.
yes, you did. You did respond to that.
Okay,
Although unfortunately, it's just that it's a pending status. There's no forward momentum on these people's applications, which is very disheartening. to them.
okay. And by the way, in this year's budget recently passed, there are 2 new staff members that will address portions of these issues. There's an STR, what do we call it?
Permit specialist.
Specialist and a hot tax specialist in the finance department that's going to help out Janelle, I know.
Tax
Um,
questions, special.
Anyway, and these are to be funded by the SDR fees. Anything you want to add to the Granicus situation?
No, there is a high level of frustration, I know, with owners and operators as well as city staff. As you mentioned, they haven't delivered on their promises, so. We have made substantial progress over the past couple of weeks, but it is there's continued delays. We are hopeful in Earth sometime in the next week or two to hopefully go live with the full version. At that point, we will determine if we want to continue working with Granicus or, if we need to seek help elsewhere. I have been in contact with a number of other providers that we've previously spoke with, is kind of putting them on notice, but we do want to give Granicus the full version a chance, similar to the ordinance. So again, what was presented to us looked very good from the get-go. That's why we chose them. But we're not there yet. So we understand the frustration and we'll continue to work on it.
Was there anything in my presentation that you thought until Granicus is up and running, that's going to be especially difficult? Yes? So now you're nodding.
I'm thinking through that.
Okay. Okay, relative to the suggestion that we not jump into something now, but give it more time to develop with Granicus in full implementation. I understand that Granicus can help us with certain matters, but with regard to enforcement, I mean, that's not going to help Mr. Geistwhite. And they say, well, Leyland, put up with another 6 months, we'll get to it. So I'm obviously trying to get to the enforcement issue first. And I understand that there's some things in the ordinance, like Charlie was mentioning, about fines and so forth, but I'm talking about more harsher penalties that are there. Just a second, Jeffrey. Okay, I'll give you time to think about that. Yes, sir.
Gerald, don't we have enforcement or the rules already in place for enforcement already? Why that should be enforced already? We shouldn't have to wait on anything for enforcement.
Well, we have an issue with, as I understand it, and Ted and Ray back here, speak to this if you will. The biggest disruptor of neighborhood life. I mean, we have a situation we're trying to deal with. Okay, we can't wave a wand and say, all right, we're going to remove these STRs and they're going to quit being troubled children. But we do have an enforcement problem in that the most disruptive activities take place at times when our staff is not working. Am I correct? Ted, right? Yeah. So that's the problem. There's not anyone to enforce it. Now, what I'm hearing is that when police make a contact, chief, back me up or refute me, when police make a contact for a disruptive neighbor, that generally all it takes is that one contact and it takes care of itself. Most people will say, oh, we didn't realize we were being loud or whatever. Okay. But, we don't have code enforcement people to be out doing that. They can look for watering on the wrong day or trash sitting outside or whatever. I'm hearing every day, ladies and gentlemen, I hear every day from citizens who are telling me exactly what Leland has said. That there's light shining in my bedroom all night. They may shut down at midnight or 1, maybe. There's a hesitancy, according to Mr. Snyder the other day, so there's a hesitance to call the police because of the fear of retribution, which I don't understand because I'd call the police like that. But I get it, that there are people who think that there might be other retributions and so forth. But the enforcement issue is what's getting us right now.
Can we hear?
Y'all want to speak to that? Yeah,
Code
sure.
enforcement, can we hear from the code
Yes, ma'am.
enforcement officer?
I did have them before, Ray and Ted, I'd like for y'all to address this in any way you'd like to, but I did ask them to send me a list of their violation taggings for STRs since April 1st. And some of this is because of the limitation of their time and effort because remember, these are code enforcement for the whole city for other things, not just STR activity. But it looks like the heavy activity in terms of violation has been water, of course, water violations and water restrictions. I'm sure watering on the wrong day, the wrong time, etc., because these are absentee owned STRs. Prohibited signs, that was a thing here a while back. Some people tried to put some kind of weird sign in their front yard with STRs. Lighting offenses and everything else just kind of falls off in terms of violations. But the noise things, I mean, there's a few, but that's primarily because y'all aren't the ones out there that time of day, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what else would y'all say?
A lot of the issues that we do have are, of course, lighting, like you were just admitting to. Most of this stuff is taken, of course, at nighttime when we're not out. We do however stay out to about 1 o'clock in the morning on the weekends. We have changed our schedule to reflect some of the concerns of our citizens and to try to address most of these issues. Of course, with just 2 officers, that's almost impossible to say the least, but we try to do what we can. We try to address the issues that come to us. We try to answer most of our citizen complaints throughout the day. But there are some issues that we do miss, and but we do, for the most part, try to address all the issues. Not just STRs, of course. That's just a small fraction of what we do, but there is other issues that take our time, so we have to address those as well. Like I said, we're just out there trying to do what we can, when we can, and try to spread it out as much as we can to cover all these issues during the nighttime as well. So I think Ted can kind of speak to some of those issues that we deal with at night, and I'll let him kind of take it from here.
Sure, yeah, the weekend patrol overnight till 1 a.m. We are mobile through the city. The suggestion was that we would encounter hotspots where the same short-term rental or whatever is a frequent source of noise and problems or whatever. That hasn't really fleshed out because the transient nature of who's staying where and the population coming from all over and the variety of locations. So it's really complicated, or it's kind of impractical to hope that by driving through a neighborhood, we're going to see or hear a loud short-term rental with any consistency. So we monitor the radio, the police radio, listen for calls that come out that are noise, and I check to see if it's a short-term rental, and I'll respond with the police officer as well when I'm aware of those things. And
we've worked together to contact or attempt to contact the responsible party as required by the ordinance to see if they're gonna take action or respond to our inquiry within 30 minutes time. And by and large, we've had ballpark 75% success at reaching somebody who is associated with that property and letting them know and telling them they need to take action to try and quell what's going on there. But that's basically Friday and Saturday nights till 1 a.m. And every other weekend or whatever. Kind of these things go on throughout the week, not just on Fridays and Saturdays. So getting a full snapshot of that impact to the community is difficult for us at this point.
Leland, what hours would you say normally are the worst?
Mayor, I would say starting at about 10 p.m. in the evening and continuing on until about 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever. And then also, in the mornings, as I just mentioned a little bit while ago, we have the limos coming, picking up the people. The trolley comes in, just that noise and everything like that. And a couple of things that I overlook, and I think it goes with these gentlemen with the enforcement and everything. The yards not being mowed, cleaned, and maintained. We were fortunate to get the rain over the last month and everything. And I finally called the owner of the house next door if they could come. The backyard was overgrown with weeds, not an exaggeration this much. And, with the grandkids there all the time, concern for rodents and stuff coming over. The leaves, we had a lot of leaves this past winter. Those leaves laid in the yard until April of this year, cleaned up their leaves. Now, one thing too, and I guess this would go under enforcement, but these gentlemen would not be able to do that when these people arrive, at 10 p.m. or 2 a.m. or whatever like that. You have the chirping of the car alarms. So at any given time, you hear that chirp, chirp, they're doing like that. A couple of, usually there's 3 cars in front of the house and they're doing that. And then one thing, and I'm almost embarrassed to go ahead and say this here, but the street in front of our house and in front of the SDR sort of looked like the parking lot at Pat's Hall years ago. You have the big urination spots on the street. And I've even gone out on a Sunday morning with the water hose and just sort of washed them down a little bit, literally still foaming at that time. But, something like that, it's just, Mayor, we don't have to put up with that, I don't think so. Yeah, I'll shut up now.
Randy, you were gonna say something.
I guess I lost my point with that story. I'm trying to shake the visual. First of all, code enforcement should be enforced, and I strongly support what you guys are trying to do out there. I think it's incumbent upon anybody that owns property to follow the rules and do it extremely well. One point I was thinking about earlier during your presentation, and 2018 visioning when we wrote the document for family friendly safe environment. I talked to, at the time, Mayor Linda about basically a buyback, STR permit buyback from the city. So you approach me and say, Randy, I really don't want you to operate an STR. I want to give you these carrots, whatever those carrots may be. And quite frankly, I need smarter people than me to figure out what those carrots are. But we went from 325 STR permits in 2018 to now 600 plus whatever it might be, maybe closer to 625, 650. So we've been essentially doubled in R1, and in R2 we went from I think 157 to 3 something. We again doubled. Those are things that nobody wanted to see happen. I don't want to see. I don't think any STR owner wanted to see happen, just because we changed the color and the dynamics of our neighborhoods, and that's not. We live in the neighborhood too. So I would encourage the city to think about it, and I'm always willing to volunteer, and I know other smart people in the room would hopefully volunteer and say, hey, let's develop what these carrots would look like. I know that we saw panic permits that took place during that time frame. We now see that, Kent Meyer left his home with 16 individuals that are permitted. Kathy O'Neill's home was sold and is now permitted. I know another member of the neighborhood coalition is now selling their home, trying to get permitted. So I understand why, but could we come up with a creative solution that says, hey, you don't want to be SDR, and here's what the city can do for you, whatever that might be, for a period of time. Port Aransas did something similar, different economy, different marketplace, probably wouldn't fit what we're trying to do here, but we're Fredericksburg, we are unique. I think there's a lot of smart people in the room that want to solve for the same problem.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
And
Council?
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
if I may, to just recap on some of Randy's numbers. In November 2020, there were 137 permitted STRs in R1. In May of 2022, there were 338 STRs permitted in R1. And if the pending list that we have with R1 is approved as of today, there'd be 531 permitted STRs on it.
Okay.
And I have the same numbers for R2 if you would
Go
look at
ahead.
them. In R2, and unfortunately, I don't have them in 2020, but in 2021, in R2, we had 226 permitted STR units. In R2, if all pending and active permits are permitted, as of today, there'd be 265.
Okay. That's roughly a quarter of the number of R2. You call them parcels in your world? Lots. I call them lots. Same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, council, any further thing you want to discuss this? We can move this on.
Yeah, I have one really silly question for these guys. I'm told that one of the STR services has their people that are staying pile their garbage bags up on the front porch and they stay until the cleaning people come, and it may be a couple of days. Is that okay?
No,
Can
it's
they-
not.
Okay,
No, it is not, and it's just for sanitation reasons, it's not okay. We have the ability to, for most properties, they have the ability to get another trash can if it's required, you know, if they need it. But that is not something that is allowed. Obviously, the numbers that the mayor has, reflect a lot of, it seems like a small issue, having trash cans out and having trash issues, but typically what we deal with is, you know, we have overfilled trash cans, we have trash laying around, and so that's.
It's not a small issue.
but if you have the
It's-
service telling people to put it on the front porch, that I find that
That's
highly unacceptable.
correct.
And it may be a small thing in the
It's not.
big scheme of things, but it's not in the neighborhood, not if you live next door to it, it's
It's not
not.
small. You know, an
Thank
ordinance is only as good as your ability to enforce it. So why bother if you're not going to enforce it?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you
all
both.
for your input today. Kinley.
While we're on enforcement, I'm curious, what does it look like? Because the current 2022 ordinance, you've got your kind of more egregious sins, like not paying hot tax, not, being permitted. And then you have your lower class where it's like trash, noise, that kind of stuff. What happens when you are alerted that there is someone who's not paying their hot tax or not permitted? Does that fall to y'all to then, what's the next step once you learn that?
So I'll let Ted speak to that. That's something he.
Through the Granicus system, as it stands right now, there's a ability to filter through the properties to find ones that Granicus has identified as active short-term rentals that are permitted or not permitted. And so through Granicus, it allows us to send a letter to those property owners according to the CAD ownership records, which we have sent out a number of letters. And just follow up after that. If no action is taken, then we move forward. I've got 2 cases that were just sent to court on individuals operating short-term rentals right now that hasn't complied, and I sat down with and we had a discussion about his requirements, and nothing happened since June. So we do definitely work to.
So, when you get stopped by the DPS and they check your license and they call it in and they report back if you've got any warrants or whatever. So that's what Granicus can do, right? If they get a call for a trash violation, they can call and say, check out 306, whatever for me. And you can tell them, yes, they're permitted. Yes, they're up to date on hot tax. Yes, they don't have any other violations, et cetera. Or they do. That's what Granicus will be doing for us at some point.
That is correct. And I think Janelle could probably speak more appropriately to the hot tax portion.
So presently, what has been happening is we have always issued a letter to people that are delinquent for whatever quarter it is, and we try to collect on that hot, and then we give them a due date saying, okay, you're late, you've already missed this date. Hey, you need to meet it by this time, or we're gonna take you to municipal court. And so generally in the past, that's what's been happening. That's really what I have done when Fort Avenue took over, and then now it's fallen back onto my plate to handle. So
So have any permits been revoked in the last 6 months for STR permits?
Permits haven't necessarily, are you talking about hot taxes or for?
Either for hot tax or not registering?
So no permits have been revoked at this time, although staff is keeping a running list of who's remitting hot, who's not remitting hot, perhaps who's delinquent. One of the things staff has been focusing on moving forward is checking listings for STRs, and we have had several notifications of properties that are operating either outside the bounds of their permit. Let's say they're permitted for 7 occupants and they're advertising 12. Or they are permitted for 1 building and they're renting 2. And so staff has worked with code enforcement and we've been pursuing those. And those are receiving notice of violations and those are being pursued through municipal court if necessary. And then as far as the hot tax portion, we're just kind of documenting that at the moment. Keeping track of who's remitting when or who's remitting what and when during the quarters. So that we can, once we do get the full system through Granicus, we can input all of that data and track appropriately.
And I don't think it's a good idea to say that we want to move forward with coming after people until we have the appropriate software in place to help us.
You'd recommend that we look at that as a timing issue with regard to
Yes.
Granicus full implementation.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my thought was
Okay.
going a while ago when you said, is any of this going to have any
Okay.
difficulty to it? So
Well, I'll put it out there to get feedback. Thank you.
Just to add a little to respond to Emily's comment. So currently, all violations are routed through municipal court. So anything from somebody who's renting the property is 30 occupants compared to somebody who just has some trash overflowing. That all has to be routed through municipal court, which takes a lot of time. So Ted mentioned we have placed an emphasis on reaching out to the emergency point of contact. I think he said 70 to 80% generally respond. It's those consistent violators that we're having trouble enforcing. So that's where I think that civil administrative hearing process will help a lot. You know, something that takes 4 to 5 months right now to route it through municipal court, we can try to address, you know, in 5 to 10 days. Get the issue addressed so it's not just hanging out there.
And isn't that something we can do without having to redo the ordinance or
I would
go
think,
to a whole
Well, and
bunch of
that's
trouble?
again, hopefully at the next meeting or early November, we'll
I would think so.
begin implementing that. We have been in discussions with a new part-time employee who will be handling.
So what I'm hearing is that it might be best for us to focus our efforts on those bad actors. Really work hard at that aggressiveness. And then in the meantime, keep the amendment to the ordinance in the pot. Okay, yeah, Brady.
Sorry, this is back to your free zone. I apologize. What happened when you're ADD, I guess. When you talked about trickle back or non-transferability of permits, those are non-owner occupied. Is that what you're targeting? Okay, I just wanted.
In my mind, yes.
Okay, I just wanted.
And I'd have to do a lot more research, and I know our legal eagles would do that too. What's the right, smart, legal way to do this? Because you all know that this is happening everywhere. Cities and towns everywhere are facing this, and there are towns who are successfully navigating this and winning court challenges. Bill?
Just a comment to the council. You know, we're talking about pushing this out 6 months, possibly a year, you know, but I would implore the council to listen to the people who've been in this fight for 7 years. And so, you know, the truth is, we can kick this can down the road, you know, and have done that for a lot of years. But I would ask the council to, you know, act on this ASAP. Because it's been long enough.
Yeah, Mike.
Just want to comment that we're hearing all these individual issues, but systemically, city manager needs to look at this system and figure out a way to make it work. We're doing the same thing we've done for years and it's not working. We have double or triple the number of SDRs. What rationale makes us think that continuing to do the same thing will work? I mean, the administrative process seems like a given. We've got to find a faster way to get the bad actors dealt with. Otherwise, they continue on with impunity as they've done. So I encourage the council to really focus on the whole process, not this piece. But let's put a system together that is designed to succeed, not just continue to churn the way we have it.
I have a question for staff. I'm just curious with the permitting. A lot of the confusion I've heard from STR owners is not knowing when their permit is up for renewal, and the spreadsheet that's online through the public information request. The dates aren't all, it's not May 1st, 21 to May 1st, 22. It's off. And I was curious, what would it look like if we had it be calendar year permitting? Would that be too much of a burden to do them all at once, but it would be a lot more road, you could just do it all instead of it having to be fielding calls. When's my permit? I don't know, like all that unknown, back and forth. Would that help at all? If it were a calendar thing, maybe it could be prorated. Or maybe it's a, twice a year thing and get everyone on the same schedule. What would that look like?
I fall back on my experience with the building department with a question like that. Our general contractor's license, their calendar year, they all expire December 31st. And starting in November, the building department is crazy busy. Because we have 300 plus general contractors coming out to file their surety bonds and that's only 300 plus. I can only imagine what 900 with 1,300 pending applications would look like. I think that would be a question for if the Granicus system is up and running 100%, if you have additional staff on board, if we could divert staff to assist in something like that only one time a year. Would it work? Sure, probably, but how would it work? I think would be my question. And what resources do we need to ensure that it would be successful?
I think if we were to make that transition to do a yearly permit, we would need to do it in chunks as opposed to all at once, like gravitate those permits a little bit at a time to make that transition if we were to do that. I wonder too, could we not consider something quarterly as opposed to yearly? That at least you wouldn't have that backlog with, possibly 1,200 permits coming at you at one time of the year, maybe do it 4 times a year. So just
Just trying to get to the transparency issue, because whether we have like a map, which is what I really would love to have online. And through that map, you could click and it would show you who the emergency contact person is, because I think there's a lot of concern. Who do I even call when this is an issue? And for residents, internally, you'd have all the detail on whatever their infractions were, but I think we need to have something more resident focused.
I've got one concern about when you talk about having 2 cases in the court, going to the municipal court, that you put something in there that if you are going to that extent that you lose your permit until that's been solved. Because they have no reason to be in a hurry.
Well, thank you all for your thoughtful and well-meaning comments. I found this discussion helpful. Personally, just speaks for me. I'm not interested in kicking it down the road by 6 months. But I take the advice seriously, and I think that the reasoning is good. But I think that to Bill's point, we've been dealing with this a long time, and I think there are things that we can do. There are things that we shouldn't do too quickly, obviously, but just sort of putting it to bed for another 6 months, I'm not for personally. Any further comments, council? You ready to move on? All right. 6B on the, if you want to leave because that was your main issue, please do so quietly. Keep your conversation nil until you get past the hallway, because we're still in session. Thank you, staff, for coming. Thank you, others. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Thank you all for your right. Thank you for your report. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. I'll say the council on that.
Okay, send me a letter.
Thank you. Not just you, all of them.
Send us a letter.
Okay.
All right, 6B on the agenda. We'll consider that as the business item after executive session. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I would think so.
Discussion, and then we come out and so 6C, consider, discuss, and take action regarding agenda format of future special council meetings and work sessions, and discuss a list of discussion topics for these meetings. Clinton?
Okay, Mayor, Council. So this is our first special meeting workshop, we're calling it. The information that I provided in the background, according to our city charter, talks about regular meetings, special meetings, and workshops, and at what meetings we can take action on items. The meetings that we can take action on are regular meetings and special meetings. This is noticed as a special meeting. We do have a couple of action items on the agenda. But these meetings are intended to be, just like we're doing right now, primarily a round table discussion. So as we start talking about the meeting content, the format of these meetings, I want the council to look at every section that we have included on the agenda today. And if you have any suggestions for changes in terms of items that we need to move off of this format or add to this, I've had some discussions with a few of you individually, but I want to talk about that just a little bit more today. As I mentioned to the mayor, I don't want to clog up these meetings with a lot of extra. You know, this is just intended to be the discussion of 1 to 3 topics, just like the item that we just finished discussing. Open discussion with the council, certainly public comment on these items. From time to time, we will have action items to add to the agenda. An executive session, most of these will probably be noticed as special meetings. Going back to the charter, it does require us to have one regular meeting each month. We have developed a schedule of the meetings. We do have a software package that was approved in the budget this year that we will begin implementing. That is an agenda building software package. We will put together the entire schedule of meetings, not just council meetings, but P&Z, HRB, and it will clearly show how the schedules coordinate with each other. The meetings. We will also have a section regarding future agenda items. And that future agenda item list will include discussion topics. I just read my list to the mayor yesterday. I know he sent out an email to the council September 26th, asking the council to be thinking about topics. Emily has made a few suggestions. I think we even talked about this in another workshop on the 6th when we were discussing some of the changes, maybe having a monthly or a quarterly theme. Want to talk about that a little bit more today too. In terms of my update that I give, I would like to keep that on this agenda. There's typically a couple of items that I like to update the council on every meeting. But I'd like to go just a little bit beyond that, whether it's discussion or a handout of all the capital projects that we currently have ongoing. Maybe we do that on a quarterly basis or something like that. But as you can now see, having gone through the budget process, we have a lot going on. We have a lot going on in terms of projects, major purchases, major budget initiatives. I'd like to give an update on that to the council on a fairly regular basis during this meeting, if you would like that. We gave a development update previously. I would like to include that as part of this meeting from time to time, again, maybe on a quarterly basis. Talk about new hires, whether that's someone that we've just hired, anyone that has left the organization that we're going to begin advertising for. Use that as an opportunity to talk about special events. I think the council knows pretty well what special events are going on. But again, just to get that information. And a lot of this information is also for the benefit of the public. You know, these meetings are intended to be interactive. The public is certainly able to comment on any item that we have listed on the agenda. We have a number of people that have already done that today. I anticipate we're going to continue that. We're trying to get good information out there. We're trying to include the public on the council's development of priorities and discussion of priority issues within the community. A lot of what we discussed during these meetings will continue and develop throughout the year as we sit down in the budget process a little bit later next year again. If you'll recall, I started with the capital improvements plan. And then I jump to council priorities. We may have a pretty good idea what those priorities are before the CIP this year based on these conversations. So again, want to talk just a little bit about the format, the items that we have included, listed on the agenda for the special meeting workshops. So with that, Mayor, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those, but I'd like to open it up to discussion with the council, just to talk a little bit more about what items are included on these work session agendas.
Well, I expressed mine was housing, including SDRs, and traffic, including parking. Emily, you want to repeat what you recommended?
Yes, for this is probably priorities for the rest of the year. I want to be sure we're ready for the legislature coming up. I think it's the 88th legislature. It begins in January, making sure that we have our priorities plugged in. If there's things that we need to advocate for or against, just being on top of those, what we need there. And then also natural beauty outside parks, whether it's a conservancy or, with the new building that the Friends of the Fredericksburg Nature Center is looking at, trails, kind of keeping that top of mind.
Any of the rest of you ready to express a sort of hunch right now about your priorities?
One thing that just recently came up and worried about it a little bit from a point Fort Martin Scott is now our baby. And I do intend to go and visit and see what's out there, but I think that's a gem out there that we really and we don't want to drop the ball on it. I know you've taken it back over, I guess. But we probably need to take a good look at that place.
I agree. And that was in Emily's list
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
considering the outdoor stuff. Yeah.
And then I would like to see more information on STR violations or it's show me that was good to get us the information how many people are sitting in suspense waiting. And I guess I'm real disappointed with that software. I've been in banking long enough to know about software. It doesn't work. I think we've waited too long on this company. I'm ready to say, start all over. But I guess you're gotta give them a little time.
That's 6 months.
No,
No, we're all disappointed, Tony, and we've had this conversation several times about, is it time to just move?
yeah,
Or do you redeem the time you spent with them and say, well, we're almost there, let's just see. So we're all pretty frustrated by it. Yes, sir.
Robbie, were you gonna?
Go ahead.
I like the new format. I'm really excited about it, but I'm really excited about public involvement. So I want to address, we're not going to meet here. This is temporary because the municipal court.
It's a transition time because we
Okay.
couldn't get LEC, but you can see the rest of them are LEC.
Okay, because we don't have amplification. I
Right.
think some people can't hear.
Right.
And I just want to want people that are here, if they can't hear,
Right.
to realize that this is just temporary. We're not going to be here all.
Thank
I
you.
don't want them to think that this is part of the new format.
Thank you for that. Correct. We're going to be here in the next meeting, October 18th. And then the LEC, the 1st of November, back here on the middle of November, and then the rest of the time at LEC. And it's a scheduling transition because of our change to Tuesdays.
Because of the municipal court. Right,
Apparently it's busy.
the municipal court is in the LEC where we usually meet right now, right? Am I?
right.
Yeah,
That
we
took
have,
the new one.
PD training, the golf course
Okay.
had meetings today and on the 18th of this
Okay.
month.
I just want
Right.
people to know it's not gonna be like this.
Thank you.
Right.
That's important.
Thank you.
Anything, Bobby?
Parks was on my list for last quarter. It still is. I think we've just passed a new budget and I don't want to lose sight that we need to take care of the kids in this town, this community, and parks is still a big issue for me. Also, just hearing some of the stuff we heard today on SDRs, I think that is, I'd hate for us to make decisions and not have proper information and correct information. And the fact that Granicus is not up in full operation is disappointing. And I think that needs to be a big priority, because if we're talking about making changes to our ordinance, I don't want to do it without having accurate information. Also, we've got the comp plan coming, so I know we don't, and I really don't want to wait another 6 months either. But at the same time, I'd hate to duplicate what we're gonna do during comp plan before comp plan, so.
Well said. Anybody else? All right, Jeanette, you signed up to speak on this.
Yes, I just had a couple comments. First of all, I really appreciate how you're trying to find ways to involve the public. And this format, I think it's nice to have the work session and the regular meeting. I like what happened here, and it's nice, we're in a bigger room. And but I just want to make two comments. One is that this is a suggestion that maybe a regular meeting might consider having it in the evening, because people work during the day. And I know that you want to encourage public involvement, in the city council meetings are one of the primary, main hubs, so to speak. I like that you're looking at the town halls, and that's all great. But for the city council meeting, people work, like, look who's here. And I think that's important, because again, getting back to fundamental principles, it's the people that are really the government. It's the government. Yes, it's consent, everything from the people. Okay, they're really good about, like, we're gonna take inputs so that you can go what directions to go. But I feel like this is, although these other things are great, like the town hall, I feel like you're cutting off a really important opportunity for the people to have access and to be able to be part of everything and help guide and speak and get their input. Second thing is that I think it's a mistake. I know that legally, supposedly you can do this, but cutting off the regular public comments, again, that's cutting off the people's access. And I know that there's other ways that people can do it, but like I said, people work, people have families, if they come, it's I just think the priority should be to continue to have make every opportunity for the people to be able to be involved. And the problem with cutting off the public comments is that the city council meetings are on record. It's on record, so that's important. These other things are great, but I'm not articulating this very well, but I just want to say that, like, you all gave your comments, which was great, and you said any concerns, what you have, because things come up suddenly, are real important, that need to be put out in the public and in the council. And I just think that that's an important, a very important piece that should be retained.
Thank you.
Just wanted to remind the council that there are ways the public can get an item on the agenda through a request to the mayor or to council members. So I encourage the public to pursue that. I know that we've had a few of those.
Yeah, and we'll
pass.
Will include a stronger messaging to the public about why we've made the changes and why we feel like it's a good step for us now.
So back to the format, if we could just look through this right quick. Of course, we have call to order, invocation, and the pledge that will remain. You want to keep ceremonial matters, employee recognitions on the agenda?
I do.
Okay. Council comments, we'll keep that relevant. If we have action items, we'll have them. Do you have any other direction on city manager's update? Are there certain things you would like to see regularly? Any information that you'd like coming out of my office?
Yes, I would love to see a dashboard for development, be able to see, building permits, STRs, all those things. It would be nice to just have a ticker list running. I asked for this for when I was on planning and zoning. I think it'd be helpful for them to have too, as they're pondering action on things. Any other thing, if there's, public safety, I know we can read it in the paper and see it on Facebook, but if there's other things that we need to be aware of on a tracking basis throughout the year.
One thing I'll bring up, we do get the weekly report, which
That's
has all of that information.
Yeah.
Which is
But
great.
I agree, it'd be nice to come to the meeting.
Sure. Got it.
Did that just come off the weekly report with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And council, you always got the prerogative to ask when, at next meeting, would you please?
Right.
Yeah.
Items for a future agenda, keep that on for discussion.
Oh.
Really.
Mhm.
And of course, we may have executive session, but keep it very simple like that. Also, Mayor, would you like for me to read some of the items on my list of 28, just to give
Sure.
the council an idea of what's on my mind in terms of potential discussion topics? And
Sure.
again, this is no way to lead the council, but a lot of these are going to sound very familiar. Sports park. We've recently had some discussions about sports park, sports facilities in general. School resource officers, something else that we've talked about. I know the chief has been having meetings with FISD.
Just a little bit clear.
Affordable housing. Market plots events fees, something that we've talked a little bit about in the past. Review of the city charter, another item we discussed.
When was the last time we
Workshop.
reviewed the charter?
Right,
16?
partial 2016.
Okay.
Right. I think the full review was either 13 or 14, but I have to look back and
It's
see.
not.
Water supply, water conservation, parking, transportation projects, landfill transfer station. That's a completely different change in the way we would operate. Our sanitation department, pickleball, something we've talked about just a little bit at this point. New city facilities, whether that's city hall, police station, municipal court, fire station, etc. Childcare in the community. Short-term rentals, tax increment reinvestment zones, something we talked a little bit and has done a lot of work on in our leadership project. Hotel and conference center. Neighborhood revitalization. Tying comp plan goals to items on the city agenda, city council agenda, special districts, whether they're ESD, county assistance districts, MUDs, PFCs. Quarter or half cent sales tax. And then legislative issues. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that we've already talked about, some of the things that are on my mind, some of the things that'll keep resurfacing that we may nail down and continue to concentrate on through the year.
I don't want to delay any of those discussions, to make sure we handle them at the appropriate time. My theme idea, I was just thinking if we had like state of the outdoors, and then we talked through what fit under there, state of the kids, about education and daycare, stuff like that. And just have a kind of a rolling rhythm throughout the year on that. One thing we haven't talked about that we have mentioned before, but quarterly county commissioners court powwows, just whether it's quarterly or every couple times a year or something.
Yeah, at least quarterly.
How that would
I
fit
think
in.
we're all in a waiting game.
Right, and this is something, Daniel, and I've talked just a little bit about. I'm not positive the willingness of the current county staff to do that right now beyond our, I think, 2 meetings that we have jointly with them. But that's certainly something I'd like to engage the county in more as we move forward. There's a lot of issues that we deal with that overlap every single day. So Emily's seeing that more and more as she attends the the commissioners meetings, and we're seeing a lot more development out in the county and in legislative issues, water issues, you name it. A lot of parallels.
Well, I think what's forgotten, and I don't know how or why it is forgotten, but we are one community. And people that live in the city, live in the county. And we need to start thinking, there's too much going on in our county community not to address it, or at least look at it together. So I think that's very important.
So it's quite a laundry list. Could we do and take Emily's idea of themes and prioritize within that? Because some of them are fairly easy to handle, but some of them are really complex. So can you prioritize your list and we prioritize your list too and add our stuff? I mean, is there a way to get a hierarchy?
I can give you my list and y'all can certainly prioritize it.
Works for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
Better than me making my own list. That
Me
was
too.
that was a good one.
Yeah, I like that list. A couple of things on there I would, but that's okay.
But that's why we have to talk
You're
about
right.
them so we can.
Right, could be a short discussion.
That's
Anything
good.
else, Clinton?
We need some short
Go ahead,
ones.
Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Now let's move to 6D, consider, discuss, and take action regarding the kickoff of the comp plan. Garrett?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the comp plan process is underway and we feel it's gotten off to a really good start. Early last week, I know a number of you were involved in some initial kickoff meetings that were held with the advisory committee and focus groups. Those focus groups are still being put together, but currently they include parks, hospitality, business, education, and housing. I've passed out a handout that details the kind of public outreach efforts, provides a lot of details. But one thing we talked about is rather than hosting a lot of meetings and trying to have the public come to us, talk about the comp plan, we're going to try to get out to the public. The idea for that with all the events that are happening this fall is to go to those events. So we're currently working with the event organizers. We had a conference call yesterday morning. A couple ideas that have been floated out there are going to the farmers market, the Chambers Fun After 5 events, and then also possibly the community dance that's being held here on Market Plot. So that's a big part of that effort. Public outreach will be ongoing throughout the entire 16-month effort. But a lot of that will occur this fall just to get the public's ideas and what they want to see in the plan. Really, I'd be happy to discuss any of the details, but that handout does provide a lot of additional information. Anna Hudson's leading the charge on behalf of the cities. He's also here to answer any questions.
On this outreach program, can we put something in the paper announcing that we're doing that?
It's gonna be all over the place.
Perfect.
You know, we talked about that in our call yesterday. I think you'll start seeing a lot of that towards the middle of this month. Social media.
Okay.
Public notices, try to work with the paper and get an article that speaks to it.
And if you'd let the council know what those things are.
Okay.
We can assist in publicizing that.
So the handout I provided is still in a draft format, but we're trying to finalize that to have a plan for the end of the year. So we'll know exactly where we're gonna be.
Okay.
I'll provide that. If y'all don't mind, if y'all see anything in there you want to change, or if you have any other ideas, feel free to send it to me and we'll work with our consultant to get it out.
Okay.
Garrett, how's it handled? Like if someone wants to be involved, is there like, do they go to a website or email saying, I want to be on this focus group, or how does that work?
They could email me or Anna. We can try and get something on the website. I don't think there's anything up right now. More the merrier at this point.
Of the advisory committee, there's no one from the Leslie County Historical Society or from the Historic Review Board. And I thought the visioning said that history was one of the most important things to hold on to.
Yes, ma'am. What I'll do, I have a current kind of a summary list of everybody that's on the current committees. So let me pass that on to y'all.
Okay.
And then, you know, if you want to recommend somebody.
Okay.
Are you advisory committee in groups or is it one big group of people?
So the advisory committee is kind of the umbrella, and then within that, there's
Okay.
focus groups,
Okay.
you know, so there's a group that will specifically look at parks.
Okay. Yeah. So I have some recommendations too, so.
Okay.
What else? Anything else about that?
That's pretty much it.
I'm glad to
That's
get
all I
that going. Any further thing on that?
Yes, sir.
It says take action. Is there action we're supposed to?
No, actually, that's just in case there was something.
Okay, thanks.
Sort of catch all language in case you had a great motion you wanted to make about applying, getting somebody on that committee. All right. We're going, obviously, as I said, 6E is a result of a executive session meeting. So now we're at city manager report.
Okay, could you take one of those and pass it down? Okay, town hall meetings. This is something. This is something we've also talked about during recent workshops. We're about to kick off the process, been working with our engineering department in development of this map. Evan Williamson has put this together. We have molded it just a little bit into a few more areas than we had originally anticipated.
Do we have a slide of this? Do we have a slide of this?
I don't think we have that. No.
Okay.
Right. For those in the audience, you can see right here.
It's the city
I'll
limits
talk a
divided into
little bit more
27.
about this. It doesn't, it's not gonna make a lot of sense just looking at it right now, but I'll explain what we're trying to do. We really try to divide the city up into neighborhoods. When you drive into an area, we wanted to keep it small enough where the people in these areas, these neighborhoods, drive the same streets. They might know each other somewhat. They're generally dealing with some of the same issues. And so forth. So we have the city again divided up into 27 different areas. Really, when we look at the populated areas, it's more like 24. So we're looking at trying to do 2 town hall meetings each month. These will be held in the evenings, typically, probably about 6 o'clock. I have been asking for volunteers to host these meetings. As much as we'd like to have it at a school or a facility, these facilities don't exist in these neighborhoods. We're trying to make it a little bit more personal. Bring your lawn chair, let's sit outside in the driveway. If you want to host inside, we're going to be pushing into some of the cooler months. That may be a possibility, but the idea is to get out with myself, the mayor, a council member, maybe development services director, depending on the neighborhood, code enforcement if there's some issues. Whatever the case may be, give the neighborhood an update, brief update, like we do with Coffee with the City Manager. I think a lot of you have been Coffee with the City Manager. Give a brief update on some of the things the city is doing, but not spend too much time. We're there really to listen to y'all and the issues that the community in these neighborhoods are having. I think it's a good time to be doing this, going through the comprehensive planning process. We're going to be hearing about a lot of these same things. And again, this is an opportunity to get out in the neighborhoods for people that either can't make it to a council meeting or don't want to show up to a council meeting for whatever reason. Again, get that feedback from the neighborhoods. So mayor and council, we're looking at trying to schedule these on, as we're talking this generally, on the 2nd and 4th weeks of each month. Again, these will be probably beginning 6 p.m. The time changes on November 6th. Again, it's going to start getting darker soon. So as we make this transition, we're going to probably have to move it indoors, or we might have to move to a facility located near the neighborhood if we can do that. But wanted to see if the 2nd and 4th Tuesday would work. For most of you, we will likely just rotate and invite a council member to participate along with the mayor. And what day of the week would work best for everyone? We were thinking maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe better. Again, it's the preference of the of the council. And what we're going to do, I've talked to Sam, just at the end of the meeting, we'd love to have a front page article, publicize this map along with an explanation of what these meetings are all about, very similar to Coffee with the City Manager, with a few additions. Talk about sending invitations out to individuals in each one of these areas with a location and time, who will be attending and so forth. So we're trying to nail down some of these details so we can get this information in the newspaper very soon, start getting those invitations together and so forth. What, first of all, does the second and fourth week work for everyone generally?
I think Tuesdays is. I think Tuesday's better. Oh,
Tuesday?
second,
Yeah.
fourth week is fine with me.
Okay.
I think the closer you get to the weekend. With activities, board meetings, whatever, Thursday gets difficult.
Will Monday not work? I mean, Tuesdays don't, fourth Tuesday doesn't work for me at all, but
It's Monday night football.
priorities Mr. Klein.
Believe.
Would hurt town hall attendance. You're right.
No, we used to have city council meetings. Mondays.
I'm good, I'm open.
I think earlier in the week is best.
Yeah.
I do too.
Whether it's Monday, Tuesday.
But if we know.
And it's only once a quarter that
Everybody's not gonna be able to make every one. So
Right.
If Sharon's out the fourth Tuesday,
okay.
Somebody else. will.
We'll get the schedule out and we'll shuffle it. As the mayor said, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. We can
right. We may
manage
see-
it as we go.
Yeah, let's get it started.
Is there an open meetings problem with this? Can we all show up or more of us or that? If it's
That'll be
town hall?
a question for a city attorney. I know we've had,
What?
If you all show up, it would be a meeting, so you have to notice that, yeah, it has to be posted.
But it's gonna be posted, but there's not gonna be an agenda. How do we do that?
If you don't have a quorum, it's okay. If you're gonna have a quorum there, you have to have an agenda, and you can only talk about what was noticed on your agenda.
So it's not necessarily going to be a quorum. It may be the mayor and one council.
Right.
I would recommend that we not have a quorum for the sake of the discussion.
Yeah, so we can jump from topic to topic.
So
So
we can
we
alternate.
have to coordinate so we don't,
We can alternate.
show up.
so I'm gonna reach out to the council and see what areas you may be interested in. For instance, your neighborhood. If you do or don't want to attend that, or there's another particular meeting. I plan on hosting the meeting in my neighborhood. That might be one of the first meetings. Right there. So if there's areas you're interested in, again, I'll send this map along with some questions for feedback out to the council this week. And we'll start nailing down some of the details. But for now, we'll concentrate on that second and fourth, Monday, Tuesday. We'll just see what works best for everyone.
Right. So we'll have a schedule for people to sign up.
And so from a deal of, you're talking about, I mean, you've got a lot of neighborhoods. Are you like maybe cutting it down to a smaller section, or are you doing 1/4 maybe across the city, or do you have any idea?
We're gonna take one section at a time. You know, like for instance, this number one right here is Cherry Blossom. Is that correct? Is that the subdivision? This is
Cherry,
Dr. Hammerson's neighborhood right here. He has volunteered to host depending on the date we have it. So the idea would be just to start with, say, 1 or 2 or 3 and just work our way around.
Yeah, in other words,
Right.
get 1, 2, and 3 together.
No, just do them individually.
Really?
And the idea here is that, this is more of a neighborhood right here. Your neighbors know, their neighbors and, they see a lot of the same issues. When you're talking about this particular neighborhood over here, they might be dealing with a completely different issue.
Okay.
And be, just separated from the issues that this side of the town is generally dealing with.
My one recommendation would be maybe we alternate north and south. So Southsiders aren't last.
Okay.
Is that a thing, Southsiders?
Yeah.
Are we all
Okay.
in different sections, this council?
South of Maine.
Are we all?
Can you tell me what sections you're in?
I'm in 15.
I'm in 6, I think.
I'm in 17.
I'm in 12.
I'm in
You're in,
I'm in 15.
There you go.
Mayor, you are in 6.
And I'm in 6.
That's the only duplication then.
Okay, so we may have, yeah. Good thought.
It's awesome.
Yeah, this is exciting.
If there's anything in particular you would like to discuss when we develop this schedule, we can certainly do that too.
Might be nice to have a hard ending, just so people know this isn't gonna take up my whole evening,
Right,
whether they're posting it or
Absolutely.
they're ready to talk, people
right.
be respectful of their neighbors.
And we'll advertise that these meetings will generally run an hour to an hour and a half.
The idea is for people to show up and feel like they can talk about anything, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
correct.
lack of a quorum and lack of agenda is simple to me.
Right. I agree. That's why I asked.
So you have to be in that neighborhood to go.
Yes, that's
That's,
I mean, that's the plan.
that's generally the idea. And the idea would be to invite everyone to a place that is in one of these areas. Again, to gather as a neighborhood.
Well, no, I know you can't.
Right.
Why the donut hole in 26? I'm sorry. It's glaring to me.
Let's see,
How do you think?
Evan, outside the city limits.
They requested that.
Okay.
They're exempt.
Thank you.
We also have, well, Ken Carr's not surrounded on all sides, but off North Cherry Street,
Right to the left of 3.
right, Daniel's neighbor.
So is that the
Oh, I see.
Hinky property that's in the city limits? Goes across Lower Crabapple.
That's
right?
that edge.
Right,
up there.
but it's already been annexed.
I believe so.
It's already,
I mean, nothing's
Plotted.
out there.
isn't it?
It's on the map. Are you aware? Off of
It was just-
Lower Crabapple before you get to Stone Ridge off to the
Right
left.
at the end of Frederick Road.
Right.
I don't think we'll have too many people show up. on that road.
No, there's nothing out there. There's some deer.
possibly snakes.
Okay,
Okay, great.
development services.
In terms of the Development Services Director update, I'll save that for the 18th.
Okay.
We're still not ready to give an update.
Okay. Item 9, future agenda.
Shelley, do we have a future agenda items list?
Everybody.
I need one. I think I-
You don't have to be there.
There we go. I've got it. Okay, so this is for Tuesday, October 18th. Of course, we have the minutes from the meeting today. Annual sidewalk contract extension. Evan, will you ready to go on that? Trails of Windcrest.
And that's
Yes,
at
sir.
50,000.
Right. Yeah. And that may potentially change some of the pricing just based on volume. We'll discuss that during that item.
I'll
Correct.
add as well, if there are issues or projects or areas of town that are a priority for y'all feel free to reach out to me and let me know them. I'll kind of be putting some information together and ahead of that presentation. So if there are streets or areas that are y'all are considering, just let me know.
Are we following the sidewalk plan that we developed?
Correct.
Can you send that out to everybody and make sure they have it?
Good idea.
Thanks.
Right, and that is subject to change with the comprehensive plan
Right.
as well. Right, we've made a lot of headway. We've done this for
A long
7, 8
time.
years, right? Right. Okay, Trails of Windcrest land use and zoning. Garrett,
All these items will be considered by P and D tomorrow night. So we'll bring forth their recommendation.
okay, including the Frieden PUD amendment. 112 Austin, East Austin conditional use permit. Garrett, all of those,
Yes,
okay, Seco PUD amendment,
3 through 7. will be
Okay.
Considered by P and D.
okay.
I can answer any questions you might have, but
CVB lease agreement, Daniel. You're ready to go on that. That and Texas Rangers subordination agreement. Working with Andrea on that one. So I assume she's gonna subordinate it.
It's not Andrea?
It's a Daniel item.
Oh,
In executive session.
gotcha.
And then Habitat for Humanity fee consideration. That is yours. Yeah. Okay, that's it for the 18th as of now.
Okay. We're also going to have an item to consider appointment of the hearing officer for the civil adjudicator process.
Oh, good.
Good. That's great.
All right, that's it.
That's it.
All right, we've got some executive session items there. Council, as you can see, exchange and lease of value of real property located in the vicinity of North Island. Cannabis. Legal advice on our city ethics ordinance concerning administration of that. Evaluation of public officers, specifically appointing vacancies, purchase to fill vacancies on the board of adjustment. And duties of the officer and employee, specifically the city attorney. Those 4 items.
I move we go out of public session into executive session.
Second.
Motion second to go out of public into executive. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Do we
opposed? Thank you,
want to
people.
move or?
There we are. Video.
All right, we're back in regular session and we have a couple of action items regarding that session to take. First one is with regard to the, thank you, consider, discuss, and take action regarding the appointment of two vacancies for the zoning board of adjustment. And the motion on that?
I move that we appoint Taylor Williams and Eric Hammerstein to the board.
A second.
Motion second to appoint Eric Hammerson and Taylor Williams to fill those vacancies, both of whom applied. And we assume they're ready to go. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. They are appointed. Second item is regarding the resolution. And it's where is that?
Make a motion, we authorize city manager to execute and in all documents necessary to purchase property. I'm trying to look what I guess the legal on it. Jason Town Pool in the city of Fredericksburg being all of town lot number 532 and part of town lot number 533. City of Fredericksburg.
Second.
Motion second to approve this resolution 2022-21R as described here by Councilman Klein. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And none opposed? Motion carries.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.